Travis Wanguzel. So it appears that my Amazon delivery from yesterday, they got lost, is not given priority, is just rescheduled. So I could have gone out this morning to go shopping, grocery shopping, except that I was up over the night, so I'm hurting on sleep right now. So my days just got blacked. But I'm inspired to talk about this subject matter. So we begin with a dream I had while in the New York mission. I was in Long Island. That was my first location. It was Massapequa Park, and I had a dream, and probably I should fill you in on a little more detail as I'm trying to stay awake. That was where I first went. That was my first location, and I'm not sure if it was with. I think it was with Elder Gale still. And so I had just gotten out there within the month, and he was leaving. My trainer was Trunky, as we called it in the mission field when you're in your final month or months. You get Trunky. You got your bags packed, ready to go. And we did do some missionary work, but not too much. But nonetheless, that was my experience in the mission field. Was at the Pleasure Dome, or Pleasure Palace. Pleasure Dome was because of Thunderdome, and that needs to be the song in the description below. We don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. We don't need another hero. And it appears that my cough is allergy related because of the color of the mucus. Crystal white. But I'm kind of confused as to why I would still have it being in a brand new apartment. I shouldn't have anything that I'm allergic to. So I'm confused. Unless it's the dust that's on the boxes. No. So, in the dream, as I just get out there in the mission field, and we're pretty much not doing much in regards to missionary work. A little bit, I got called the bird. The bird, man, the bird. When we came walking by, we weren't even going to knock on his door. But he apparently wanted to express to us his feelings about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. and and so I'm in a stake center size chapel, and it's overflowed into the cultural hall back to the stage. If you're familiar with the setup of stake centers compared to regular wards, they're bigger because they hold stake conferences rather than just ward attendances. And so it was packed with priesthood brethren, Melchizedek priesthood brethren. I do not recall seeing young boys of the Aaronic priesthood. It was just all men in suits, all black, going all the way back. And I was, as you're facing the pulpit, I was on the left side on the benches, about halfway from in the chapel before you get to the doors from the chapel. And I was up against the wall. And so, like I said, it was packed. So there was guys lined up next to me, and in front of me, and behind me. We're all crammed in. And the one who's conducting, I'm not sure if he was the presider as well, he gets up and he does the introductions, and then all of a sudden he stops and then announces, "I introduce to you Jesus Christ." Yeah, the guy who I keep telling you does not exist, created by Constantine. But the church has lied to us about this. They have purposely deceived us. And so, yes, Jesus was in my dreams because of the church. And it's used as a symbolism. Dreams are not real. Dreams are symbolic. And so, everybody turns to look at the back doors right behind me in the chapel area. And guards come in suits, but you know they're guards. And they come into the chapel area dressed in their suits. And then Jesus comes in, and he's in his white robe, not wearing a suit like the rest of us. And he comes down the aisle right by me, and as he gets to my aisle, he stops, turns, looks at me straight in the eye, and telepathically says to me, "You just barely made it." And then I wake up, and there's some bit of moisture and heavy breathing, and then confusion. What is that supposed to mean? What do you mean I just barely made it? Just barely made it on my mission? Am I a sinner? Was I almost not going to make it on my mission because of some sin I had done that I'm unsure of? You know, I was born and raised Mormon, and we're not supposed to touch evil objects, especially those women objects. And so, yes, I was a good boy. Unless my mind was thinking that I somehow was evil and guilty of something that I had done because of the church's bullying by the prophets, telling me that I'm unworthy and that I need to repent always and keep paying tithing so that I can be worthy to enter the temple. And so, yes, this is the kind of pressure that the church puts on Mormon boys, not just Mormon girls. And so the rest of my mission, the next couple of months, I again kept getting put with missionaries that were going home that month. So after Elder Gale, it was Elder Miyazaki and Vaitai? Or was Vaitai the missionary who everybody knew that every day is P-Day? But we had a mission conference with the new mission president, Elder Creel Coford, who, yes, became a member of the Quorum of the 70, first Quorum of 70, while on his mission with us, because of his ability to take us from missionaries averaging 2 per missionary for their whole 2-year term to 200 per missionary per month. Except for some troublemaker who let people choose rather than conning them like a salesperson. And yeah, that was me. And so I was considered the bad boy in the mission field, troublemaker, and etc., because I wasn't converting. Therefore, I was the one who was in the wrong. And so other incidences pursued. But I just did my job. Doing a mission is easy. I don't understand all these missionaries that come home and say, "Oh, it was so hard, but it was so worth it." It was easy. You go out, you ask people if they're interested, they say no, you move on. You don't keep trying to weasel your way in to trick them. Oh, and pray so that you're in torment because they're not doing what you want them to do and joining the church automatically. I don't understand. Why aren't they joining? The church is true. Don't they see that? It was easy. I got 2 years away from my family. They paid for it. Anyway. So, there's some Mormon myths in the church as well that relate to this. And there's also some confusion about church history on what was supposed to happen. And there's a reason why they're myths and such. So we'll first go to the actual accurate history of the church to then proceed. Section 107, verse 22. Okay, so I've confirmed this with the Joseph Smith papers. I've done the video about it, shown you the pictures. So we're not doing that in this video. And so if you're brand new, understand, I already know all this information. Don't think you know more than me. You didn't even bother to look at the Joseph Smith papers. You just think that you were born and raised in the church, therefore you know everything. This is dumb. I was born and raised in the church too. Born in the covenant. So don't think you know more than me. You don't. So, he's talking to the Quorum of 12 and the 70 associated with the missionary work of the Quorum of the 12. Joseph Smith had given out the licenses so that they can go out and preach, and Brigham Young's license was just that, to preach, only to preach. It does not say he's a prophet, seer, revelator, and translator. Dumb. How we missed this is beyond me. The church purposely has deceived us And so his license is for the Church of Latter-day Saints, because this was given in 1835. And so Brigham Young is part of this group for this priesthood meeting that was being held March 28th. And not only do we see that Brigham Young is in the Church of Latter-day Saints. Notice it's not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It is this group that were part of the problem that escalated in 1838 for Joseph Smith to render his visionary account, which is wrongfully called the church history. But Joseph Smith did say it's a history, but it's a visionary account. Over and over and over again for each of them, he says, visions, visions, the vision I had, the vision. And so it's very clear it is not literal history. It is written in a historical context, but none of it happened. And so even though this is the bicentennial year of the second vision, the second vision did not happen. The second vision is prophetic, revelatory material written in the learning of the Jews as a warning and prophecy for this year. And it's about our true Christ. And I'll give you a hint, if you hadn't caught on, it's not Jesus. That was explained to us very clearly in the first vision, verse 19. And so these missionaries, specifically Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball, that was their whole intention of joining the church, was to go around and tell people, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Here's the Book of Mormon, another testament of Jesus Christ. So another Bible. Oops, no it's not. And so Joseph Smith had to set the record straight in the Joseph Smith Visions history. And yes, Joseph Smith Papers tells us it's not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints then either, because it shows in the footnote Willard Richards was the one who added Jesus to it. And who's Willard? Yeah, he's a member of the 12, and he was the one who would go on to shoot Joseph Smith in the back and throw him out the window. Very sad. And so yes, that's the plot of Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball, was to infiltrate the church, sabotage it by claiming it's Christian with Jesus, and then they cooed the church, having framed Joseph Smith for crimes he did not commit, so that they can run the church in his absence. And when they couldn't keep him in jail, they then murdered him and took over the church by brute mass force because of the converts of the Danites that they had obtained. And then they fled the country because of the burnt bridges they had caused. And then you have the church today saying that they are not being given their religious freedom to overthrow the government and restore their kingdom with polygamy and child bride marriages. And so Joseph Smith tells these guys how the succession of the church is supposed to be performed. And so now you understand why only the 12 and the 70 are referred to here, because he's only talking to them. Later on, you'll see that he talks about other quorums. But right here, he's just talking to the 12 and the 70. And so he says that both of them are under the dominion of the presiding high priesthood, the quorum of the first priesthood. But he says that when he is dead, that's what's understood here, that this is how succession is supposed to be made. He talks previously that every quorum have a president, and the president is voted within the quorums. And so in 1838, when Brigham Young couped the leadership of the church, his Danites threatened Thomas B. Marsh to leave the church. And Thomas B. Marsh left because of the Danites and their threats. And so Brigham Young then held a vote of the remaining members who were loyal to him, and they all voted unanimously to have Brigham Young as their president. And Brigham Young then on March 17th, and again I refer you to Deuteronomy chapter 19 at the end of the chapter. I think it's 19:19, where the replacement for the false accuser, the punishment for false accusers occurs. And so, yeah, he has no authority. He exalted himself with a coup. But he had sent a letter to Thomas B. Marsh saying that he needs to come back on the 17th of March for his excommunication proceedings. And of course, Thomas B. Marsh never replied, never showed up. So on the 17th of March, 1839, Brigham Young had excommunicated Thomas B. Marsh. That's not his authority. You don't excommunicate within your quorum. Only vote to who your president would be. And he did that part, but he couped the church to do it. But Joseph Smith says for his position, there's going to be a different manner in which the successors to the first presidency will be done. And this is where Brigham Young does not follow it. He followed it for his exaltation in the quorum, but he did not do it to take over the leadership of the church, not just in Joseph's absence by being framed and locked up in jail, but also after his assassination. This is where you read and then you see what's being done in the church and you're going, what? WTF? Because they used that back then. This isn't exclusive to us. This is part of the texting code. Now, verse 22, of the Melchizedek priesthood, 3 presiding high priests. And you need to know that Joseph Smith gives prophet, seer, revelator to only his brother Hiram and himself. Hiram also was patriarch after father died. I think it was in 1840. But and then Junior is translator as his extra special gift. And so nobody else in the church has those gifts: prophet, seer, revelator, patriarch, translator. Just the brothers. And so when he says 3 presiding high priests, he's not talking about the counselors, as he's otherwise mentioned. He doesn't mention that here. He's talking about 1 president per quorum, and then in other places he talks about having 2 counselors for the president. And so the president of the 12 under Brigham Young didn't have counselors. He could have had counselors if he wanted. And yet they are the counselors for the first presidency anyway, because it says the 12 traveling counselors are called to be the 12 apostles. And notice it says name of Christ in all the world. What is the name of Christ? No, it's not Jesus. Are you not even listening to my channel? It's Emmanuel, the name of the Mormon who would be the Christ of the latter days. At the Grand Priesthood meeting, which we're getting to, because this is all part of the theme. And so, it's 3 presidents, 3 presiding high priests. Not a president and 2 counselors. Because counselors are not prophet, seers, revelators, and translators. Only the president. Is that in verse 90? '91 and 92, yeah. And so, yeah, this is where he says, only the president of the church, who presides over the whole church, is the man like Moses. Did you catch that? Now that you've learned from me? Did you catch that in verse 91? But only he is to be a seer, revelator, translator, and prophet, having all the gifts of God which he bestows upon the head of the church. So nobody else. Only the patriarch, which ended with Hiram's death, if you didn't catch on. And so Joseph is here saying that there are going to be 3 presidents. 3 presiding high priests. And this is not unusual. How many presidents are in the presidency of the 70? 7. And so no, it's not unusual for Joseph Smith to have more than 1 president in a quorum. And so this is what he's doing. After Joseph Smith dies, or it becomes a fallen prophet, as Brigham Young thinks he is, and thus put in section 85 of the Doctrine and Covenants the year before he died, because now Brigham Young can say, it was me, I'm the one mighty and strong. I fixed the church that Joseph Smith failed. That's how he literally thought of Joseph. That's why he did what he did, or justified what he did. But these 3 men of Orient are chosen by the body. The vote. Not a sustaining vote. Not automatically assumed because they're the president of the 12 apostles. They are voted in office. They don't get to pick it. They don't get in because of seniority. They have to be voted. By who? By the body. And the body that is being referred to here is not the first presidency. The first presidency can't vote to who becomes their presidents, obviously. And so you go back to, using grammar, the Melchizedek priesthood, which is a lot of quorums under Joseph Smith. Because these are just the missionary part. The 12 missionaries with the 70 missionaries. There's like 12 administration apostles, which is the High Council, of which Samuel was a part of, Samuel Smith. And then there's 70 for the administration. And then there were some other quorums that came about under the Melchizedek priesthood. And so every single Melchizedek priesthood holder is supposed to gather in a big priesthood meeting. See where everything's starting to make sense now? With what was supposed to have happened, but did not happen in that August General Conference, 1844. And they vote for the 3 men who are to succeed Joseph Smith. And when they die, a vote is held to replace them by the Melchizedek priesthood. A vote. Not too dissimilar from conclave of the Catholics. So if you watch Angels and Demons, it's all the stress about conclave. Oh, we've got to preserve conclave. Dan Brown's character, Tom Hanks, save us. Figure out the murderer. And so I preferred the original book better. Because the Pope had given birth to the guy who would become the assassin and had an affair with a nun, and you get the description of the black tongue of the dead Pope, meaning that he was poisoned to death, and then the Illuminati brand that was shown to us in the text, and all that stuff. So anyway, wrong church, Dan Brown. It was Brigham's church. That is the Illuminati. That's why the inverted pentagram of Lucifer for the Illuminati. The light bearer. But I've done those videos for you and explained all that. And so, yeah, appointed and ordained to that office after they've been voted in. And so the part that they've tried to pull over on us is that of the upheld by the confidence, faith, and prayer of the church. Yeah. And so in priesthood, they would then be announced as the new presidency. But first you have to have the great grand priesthood meeting to determine who the presidents of the church would be. And because this didn't happen, there is no true successor of Joseph Smith. None of the branch-offs are the true church. None, Mormons. Especially not Brigham Young, who lost his authority when he thought murder would be the way to take over the church. You can't murder the first president and then claim to be the true successor of him and claim that your church is his church even though you've replaced his church with Christianity and Jesus. Doesn't work that way. Because then you end up having missionaries that go on their missions having dreams about Jesus, telling them that they just barely made it. And causing lots of stress and guilt and grief and confusion. And so, yeah. So, now you're aware of Adam on Ahman, aren't you? You're going, oh, that's supposed to be Adam on Ahman, the great grand priesthood meeting, where everybody votes as to who's to take over the church for the millennial reign of peace. And we're all going to vote Jesus. Yeah, see where it's gotten confused? They used this. Brigham Young's Danites used this to confuse us about the latter days. And so that's where the great grand priesthood meeting comes from. Is this right here. But the Danites have twisted it into a secret plot code for what they're planning to do in the latter days. And remember, this is the bicentennial year of the second vision, the day that shall burn as an oven, in order to coup the United States of America to restore their kingdom of Brigham Young. And so, as we have been told in myth, is that there will be a great grand priesthood meeting at Adam, Ondi, Ahman. And we know that Adam, Ondi, Ahman is a fraud, right? Because you've been watching my channel, you've been reading through the Joseph Smith papers, you know it's a fraud, right? Adam, Ondi, Ahman. Ahman is misspelled by the Danites on purpose. That's the code. Because they can deceive Mormons. And Helaman chapter 6 verse 22, they have their secret words. This is one of their secret words. Because it sounds like Ahman that Joseph Smith talked about, but Ahman is spelled differently by Joseph Smith. A-H-M-A-N is not Joseph's A-W-M-E-N. That's important to understand. And so 116, about Adam, Ondi, Ahman, is a forged document of the Danites under Brigham Young. It did not happen. Joseph didn't go out there and then designate the land as Adam, Ondi, Ahman. Didn't happen. Because the original Joseph Smith papers, the document, shows that someone came in many years later and wrote it in. And so it would have been after Joseph Smith had died when the ink would have faded that much. And so when you realize when they were put in the Doctrine and Covenants, the year before Brigham Young died, which we can confirm by going to the Wikipedia page on the Doctrine and Covenants. There we go. Doctrine and Covenants Wiki. Wikipedia tells us which sections were put in which years. And it's by the church that did this, so it's not fake news, as some Mormons might try to claim. It's under sections added to the LDS edition. This is according to the church. A member of the church made sure to put this in here so that we have it accurate for the church's information. The church has no problems with this. They just claim that it's all true and that they're the true church and the true successors and Brigham Young's a true prophet, even though he's a racist, sexist, bigot, neglectful of the poor, and anti-Semitic, and a murderer, and a thief, and a liar, and a cheat, and all sorts of abominations. And so, in 1844, the church added 8 sections. No, Brigham added 8 sections. This is what they don't want you to believe. They don't want you to understand that in 1844, Joseph Smith died. And Brigham Young, with his muscle and might of the Danites that he converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, were able to outmuscle the others. And as the 12 were to publish their Elders' Journal, as you see that the Brigham Young had influenced that as well. The 1838 version or edition, for example, didn't get completed and published by Thomas B. Marsh. Remember why? Chased out with the coup. And so it was Brigham Young who had it published. And guess what the name of the church is in that Elders' Journal? The Church of Jesus Christ. And so, yes, this is Brigham Young who added these 8 sections from the 1835 edition. It was by Joseph. Section 103, Section 105, Section 112, 119, and I think that's tithing, isn't it? And guess when tithing comes out? Oh, it supposedly came out in 1838. Uh-huh. Isn't that a coincidence? 1824, 127, 128, and 135. That's numbered according to our current edition. Not necessarily from the edition in the 1835. And so, yes, then in 1876, you have 2, 13, 77, 85, 87, 108 to 111, 113 to 118. There it is, 116. They purposely put that in there. 120 to 123. Those are legitimate. So you see what they did there? They put in the forged documents leading up to Joseph Smith's Liberty Jail documents that are confirmed and established. So 113 to 118, forged. 125, 126, 129 to 132. Oh, what's 132 again, Mormons? And they don't tell you that monogamy was gutted in that section, in that edition in 1876, the year before Brigham Young died. And there is important context for ex-Mormons to know and understand here. 132 is about polygamy. And they replaced Joseph Smith's chapter on monogamy. They also gutted section 131. And they did this the exact same manner that they did for the Ahman part. In that they put in a forged document, section 132, and then had to gut some of the others so that it made sense. So section 131, as we have it, is gutted. And what does it talk about? Well, it talks about exaltation in the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. But there's something missing. The plain and precious parts of the Doctrine and Covenants section is missing. What is that plain and precious part? Well, Joseph Smith is talking to a monogamous couple and saying that their monogamous marriage will exalt them in the celestial kingdom, the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. Brigham can't have that. He gutted it in order to put in section 132, where only polygamy is the highest degree of the celestial kingdom law. The higher law. Now you know where Nelson is getting this higher law from. It's code for polygamy, as well as trust in the Lord is a code for polygamy as well. That came from Oakes in his October 2019 conference. And then section 136. And so then the others, is it 136? No, it's not 136 because he wouldn't have had to, he wasn't president of the church. It's the final one. So is it one? Yeah, sections 137, 138 were added in the 1981 edition. So, wow. Talk about irrelevant. And notice they don't talk about John Taylor's editions during his presidency. Those were forced out by the United States of America. As the FLDS Church then claimed that those needed to be put back in. And so the polygamous groups used John Taylor's scriptures to justify polygamy. All right. So the code is that Adam-on-Diamond is as it was back in 1838. In 1838, the Danites used Newell K. Whitney's home as their headquarters, their secret headquarters. And you can see in the Joseph Smith papers that Brigham Young had given himself plausible deniability, in which he forged a revelation from Joseph Smith saying that Brigham Young is revealed by Jesus to go to his family and spend some time with his family. How convenient, Brigham. And so, yes, Brigham was able to say, I wasn't involved, not me. Joseph is guilty, he's guilty. But I'll take care of the Mormons in his absence. So, yeah, what had happened was the Danites gathered together that 1838 for the election. They then marched down to the polling place in Daviess County, which Ahman is Daviess County, and there proceeded to try to overthrow the election, to have their designated candidate win the election over the townspeople who wanted their candidate. And Chris Stewart's ancestor, Chris Stewart is in the House of Representatives for the United States of America for the state of Utah, and in the particular district that he's in. I'm not sure. I'm in a whole new district. I have to do a new filing, I guess, for the 2024 election. Are we sure we are even going to have it? I don't think so, but we don't know yet. Because there's a certain person who's been tampering and exposing the plot to overthrow America in these last days. And it's his lawsuit against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the federal courts that resulted in the January 6 filings for seditious conspiracy. And yet he was denied his right to petition, but saved America in the process, or is trying to save America in the process. And yes, it's me. Hello. And so Chris Stewart's ancestor got knocked down first. That was the blow that started the war. But they were there to coup the election. And so Ahman's priesthood meeting is code for the coup of the United States of America with election fraud. What? We've had election fraud January 6th. Yeah, exactly. And despite all the attempts and warnings and tips and evidence and documents that I've given to the federal government to stop this church, they won't do it. So frustrating. And so the church is therefore not being held accountable, and they're coming after me, and they're trying to murder me, and they're doing a pretty good job. If you've been following me for years, that's why I had to sue the church in the federal courts, is because the church was trying to assassinate me. And that was the only way I could think of to save my life. It turns out that it ended up being in the fulfillment of prophecy, because remember, Moses goes before Pharaoh's court, let my people go. And so we're far enough in that only the righteous, chosen ones are listening, who already know this information. Hey guys. And so yes, I have likewise on that checklist you're supposed to be making for the man like Moses, whom Joseph Smith says is our Christ. I have done it. I have petitioned the government to let the Mormons go. That the church is criminal, church has no authority, etc. And thus, did I say criminal? But, yeah. And so, the Ahman plot was preserved in what I had found out in Joseph Fielding Smith Sr.'s but it was Junior who released subsequent editions, as I found out in the preface. Helps to read. And so on page 290, 291, they reveal their plot, because Jesus and Lucifer are not real. They're symbolic characters of actual people in the latter days. And so when Lucifer hands over the keys of government to Jesus at the Ahman Priesthood meeting, what he's saying is that the government leaders will hand over the keys of government to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And that's already happened, which is why the church isn't being held accountable. They're not being punished according to the law and getting away with their crimes, except for Nielsen, Brother Nielsen, who was the whistleblower of Ensign Peak Advisors, who finally got the SEC to punish the church and expose them for their crimes. And so where I've failed, except for exposing them in the public record, he succeeded so far to at least get the SEC to punish them. And it was only $5 million, which is petty change to the church. They make that on interest for each second of the day. But nonetheless, the church got exposed for tithing crimes again. The Perpetual Immigration Fund was the tithing crimes of Brigham Young, which he started it with the death of Joseph Smith, as he then required and thus put out tithing in 1844 for the sole purpose of forcing Mormons to pay tithing in order to be worthy to enter into the temple. So that's where that started. It wasn't Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith did nothing with tithing. And so if you're confused, why aren't we practicing the law of consecration, and you're hearing reports of people who are practicing the law of consecration because of their wealth, and they came to the church and says, I want to practice the law of consecration. The church says, okay, fine, we'll give you special exemption. Because you're wealthy and you're giving us all your money. And so, but nonetheless, that's the whole plot, is that the church is going to be involved in the overthrow of America. And we've seen that as I've done the videos. And a major temple yet to be determined in Russia. Yeah, there's a twofold thing. There's election fraud that Russia was involved in, using that money for, as well as for the War of Armageddon in Ezekiel chapter 38. Gog and Magog are Russia and Ukraine. And the war would bring about Jesus. And that war is supposed to happen after Ahman Diamond. And so we know Ahman Diamond has already been happening, as the church has been making business deals to set all this up. And so the Zedekiah, who was put on the throne in the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah from the Book of Mormon, put on by Babylon, a foreign government, with election fraud. That's what that's talking about there, is that the 2017 president would be put on the throne by election fraud of a foreign government. And we know it's 2017 because they go in to write about Lehi's dream of a sign in the heavens that is directly from Revelation chapter 12. And if you're confused as to how they would have known that, and if that's the case, one, the Book of Mormon tells you to refer to John's revelation, Nephi's dream. The Apostle of the Lamb was named John. Refer to his books. And two, the Joseph Smith translation, actually the revision, but they had to call it translation because they don't have copyright authority over it. The Community of Christ does. And so in Revelation chapter 12, they move verse 5 to verse 3. It's part of the original sign of 1 and 2. And so it's the conception and birth sign. And technically it's the birth sign, but in order to have a birth, you need to have a conception. An immaculate conception with an immaculate birth, which is in outer space. It's a sign in the heavens. And that gives us a precise star date, 23rd September 2017. And that was the Saturday when the Women's Relief Society were finally accepted as part of General Conference. Prior to that, it was a separate conference for women only. It was not considered part of General Conference. Thomas S. Monson had changed it to make it part of General Conference. And so the new Relief Society president, who was selected by Monson back in April conference, was the primary president made Relief Society president. And then her first assignment was in the October, or 23rd September 2020 or 2017 General Conference. The first time it was put in. And that is the birth sign to start the latter days. And so primary with children who are born of women becomes the woman's leader. Isn't that amazing? She's now a woman who's had babies. Woman, if you've heard my topics on, or videos on that. And so, yes, the Smiths knew. And they were warning us. And you missed it, because you weren't hearkening to me. And the government's not hearkening to me. I told them I have more information for you than what I'm giving you. There's other things coming. And nope. We don't think Travis is credible. Did Bigfoot take it, Travis? We gave you a credible tip that someone was going to steal the Declaration of Independence. And you're now mocking us, thinking Bigfoot took it? Oh, you're so hot, I want to marry you, and you can become my next ex-wife, too. For the second national treasure. Yep. They're coming out with a third, I understand. That's exciting. I hope it comes out on DVD before the end of the world, or the day that shall burn as an oven. I also need to get the fourth book, or the 2024 book of the Egyptian calendar. But we'll have to see. So, yeah. The final year, guys. The final year. And so, yeah, everything has happened according to their plans. And only a certain thorn on their side has been causing them to readjust their plans. So, yes, that's why I was doing videos, is to stop what I knew was coming. And I had been successful. And the church got pissed and sought to murder me so that they can resume their plans. And so, yes, the Salt Lake Temple will be finished for that conference weekend of 8 April 2024 on that Monday. They had purposely designed it that way and made their announcement back when they did. And then I came out and exposed it. And so then the church comes out and says, it might be extended longer. And then it's going to be a miracle that it actually does get completed on the day that it's supposed to get completed. And then there was section 45, 30, somewhere in between 30 to 33. One of those sections or verses. Read it. That's what YouTube has been using against me to shut down my channel for conference times. And so I'm waiting for them to attack me again, to deny me my religious freedom, to deny my freedom of speech, and to prevent me from warning the world about the church. But, yeah, you'll have to read it to see what it says, because if I say it, then they'll have cause to shut me down, even though they've now proven and confirmed in the the government and the CDC that I am accurate, because I'm only following their advice. So, anyway. And so that's the whole thing. There is no priesthood meeting for Ahman. It's code for the coup of America. That the church is going to force the governments to submit the knee to the church. And we need to make sure that it's not out for delivery, and it shouldn't be, but I need to make sure. So we'll pause for a station identification break at the 1 hour time limit. And just check to make sure they're not out for delivery. And no, it is not out for delivery. Okay, so that is for the construction crew that I heard, or some new people that are moving in, which is possible. Yesterday there were several people that had gone into the leasing office. Whether they got the apartments that are available, I don't know. But yeah, this is a hot spot for new stuff. This is the first building that has been completed. The others are still being worked on. There's one huge one that's in an L shape that on the outside is finished, and so they're most likely just putting in the plumbing and electrical stuff. And then they'll be offering those apartments too. And so that should be this year when those are made available to you guys. And then there's several other buildings that are still in the wood frame stage. And so, yeah, you can be my neighbor. Wouldn't that be great? So yeah, for the final year of the latter days, there's some things that are coming still that the church is setting up in motion. This is why I'm doing my videos, to warn you about those. And so I think we're ready to go for the final one, the 8 April 2024, the good guy version. This is what's supposed to happen, and we know this from Revelation 19 and Joseph Smith section 80 or 58. It's the last day's wedding supper feast at the temple in Zion of the Lamb. And the reason why it's a lamb is because of the death sign in the heavens. John is revealing the star date for us of 8 April 2024, where Jupiter, who is the representation in planet form from Revelation 12's birth of the man-child, that's Jupiter, because it retrogrades in Virgo's womb for a pregnancy period. And even though it was 10 months, because November, when the full moon occurred, it was a supermoon, and that was the conception. But nonetheless, we identified Jupiter as the Christ of Mormons on Earth. And that Jupiter will be in the constellation of Aries, the Lamb-Ram constellation. And he's already finished his retrograde, and he's starting to head out. And before he heads out, he's at the hind legs of Aries, and boom, the total solar eclipse on the back of the white horse in the birth sign Pisces of the Christ for March 17th, 1970. And so when Jesus is talking with the people, and he does the 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread, those are the 2 birth dates. The 2 fishes is his actual prophesied birth date constellation sign, Pisces, for 17th of March, 1970. And the 5 loaves of bread are for the birth of the latter days, the beginning of the latter days, 23rd September 2017, that Isaiah prophesies about, that is at the beginning of every single gospel, which are technically apocalypses, because they're prophetic. They're talking about his ministry. That's why you don't hear much about his childhood and his beyond his birth. There's specific stories that need to be told, like him going to the temple as a boy, and to be tested by the Jews there at the temple. And then says, I'm about my Father's business. But for the most part, it's right before the ministry. And thus, the birth is supposed to be associated with the start of the ministry, 2017. That's what they're trying to tell you. And then it's confirmed that 2017 is the first year with the stories of Samson. Samson is the sun king. Shemesh, sun in Hebrew. And the N is the suffix determinative, because I'm the one who deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. This is what I know. This is what I've deciphered for the vocabulary. And for a person, it's king, and for land, it's kingdom. And in this particular case, it's a person. So it's the sun king. And so the deaths that occur in the story have to do with solar eclipses. And so the three major ones are the 3 days of darkness. And 3 hours in those Gospels, apocalypses. But Moses, when confronting Pharaoh, has 3 days of darkness. The Book of Mormon, 3 days of darkness. That's what they're referring to as the 3 solar eclipses over the United States of America, because solar eclipses not only designate the time when they happen, the day and the hour, but also the location on Earth. So the latter days is not in Jerusalem. It's not in Egypt. It's not in Babylon, etc. It's over the United States of America because of the prophecies and the astronomy, which are where the prophecies come from. And so it's the United States of America. So Zedekiah, Herod, and Pharaoh are representations of the President of the United States in the first year. And thus I'm able to tell you that we are in 3rd Nephi, chapters 8 through 10. The climate change disasters that are upon us, that are already happening so far. But more is to come. I need to replace my contact, but I need to find the paper towels to do the contact change. So frustrating, and I can't microwave stuff until I get my paper towels either. And I have little time during my day to do things. So, the wedding supper feast of the Lamb at the last days, Zion Temple in southern Illinois, where X marks the spot of the solar eclipses, the first and the last one. Which people know this because they designated cities named Salem, New Jerusalem, peace, on that path. And X marks the spot, there's a Salem right there. They know, but they're the enemy, as I've found out, because those left of the good guys died with the Smiths. At least as far as I know. They had to keep the top information secret from everybody, but there were those assigned to help out, like the York Masons, who helped William Morgan flee the country. They knew that William Morgan needed to be saved and needed to keep it a secret, and if they got punished by the law, so be it. But I don't think they knew of the plot The Book of Mormon was supposed to release the plot. And it seems that the enemy is the one who placed the Salems along that path. And so I am alone on this, with this knowledge that the Book of Mormon helped me figure out, as I did church history research. And so yeah, if the church had just left me alone to dabble in the ancient languages, I wouldn't have pursued the knowledge or the research into church history and thus into the latter days. Though I still would have gone, hey, wait a minute, solar eclipse over America? That still would have happened, but I would have been further behind. But, yeah, because it was the end of 2017 when I began doing church history research, because the bishop extorted my church attendance and thus kicked me out of the church. I had to give up my career showing that Joseph Smith is a translator because it goes against the prophets, or why am I bothering showing up to church? So blame him or thank him, however you want to think, and the people who are still listening want to thank him. And so, this is the coronation. The final date on Monday. Zion Temple is supposed to be built. Oops! We missed the Exoduses. There was one in 2020. 600 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem is code for 2020 being the Exodus. The Exodus year. And the events that occurred in 2020 confirm that was the Exodus year. And I came out and said, when and if something big occurs causing us to flee, those who are listening, meet me at the turnoff at the Green River exit. And from there we'll head east to southern Illinois. And wouldn't you know it, the news then came out and said the Green River has dried up. I parted the Green River for us to pass through on dry land. But nobody hearkened. And so as a result, death occurred. Creeping death occurred. And so I then realized that 2022 was the second opportunity for an exodus. And Mormons missed that as well. They still would not hearken. And most of it is probably due to the YouTube employee who has censored my videos from other people's channels. And so that was frustrating because the church really attacked. They shut down my website that I had going, that I was going to have merchandise being sold on eventually, and other stuff, trying to help people understand and learn about the latter days as I'm collecting information, and realized I have come across a snag that I've got to go back and obtain certain information for the history of the people. I was worried about that, but I'm glad I'm finding out now rather than in Zion or the cave, which is more likely the scenario now, doing the abridgment. And so, yeah, I need those files. So there's so much to do, and I'm all alone doing it. So that is the one thing that I could use help with, is working on the collection of the files. And so I don't know if anybody is close by to be able to stop by and help out, or how I could figure out assignments for people to do on their own at their place and work with me on it, or I'm not sure. But I am doing all this work alone, and I shouldn't. I should get other people involved to help out. But it's difficult with the long distances that many of you who are the most chosen are living in regards to where I am located. So again, special privileged information for those who are the most faithful viewers who are sticking it out to the end here. But along with the coronation, there has to be a wedding feast. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, although I'm concerned I'm going to be stuck in the cave. That it may not happen. Because yeah, it means there's going to be a female. And I am so lonely. But yeah, I don't know. The natural disasters and traumas and situations of death on the line tends to get women and men together. It's not the best of relationships, but that does tend to get men and women together. And we are in the time period of the natural disasters that will force an exodus. But Utah, the church, is also seeking to kick out the unworthy, to purge Utah in preparation for their white master race of Mormons to run the kingdom of Zion. And thus, the buildings that they're doing, it's for the future kingdom. It's not for the lack of housing. They purposely cause the lack of housing so that they can then build right before the latter days. And so these buildings will be finished by 8 April 2024, when the church takes over the kingdom. And will be housed with their pure white master race. And those of us will be kicked out, chased out, forced out, threatened out, or natural disastered out. We'll have to wait and see which manner it is that will happen. But they're doing multiple ways to cause us to leave. They're gathering the homeless at the shelters, specifically for the extermination. They're going to pass a bill to allow the overflow of the shelters. So this final winter in 2023-2024, right before the time, will be their last. So I see exactly what they're doing and setting up for, and it's very scary. And yes, I mean, the evil of these guys, that they have no compassion, no sympathy, no empathy for humans, that it's all about domination, control, and using force and taking away agency. It's very scary. And if the government refuses to lock them up, as is prophesied, that's Lucifer being chained for 1,000 years. At the start of the millennium. But we're supposed to go to Southern Illinois. So, because you guys missed the Exodus, there's no temple being built for that time period. So yeah, there's some concerns I have, and I'm concerned that I'll be stuck in a cave. Because the day that shall burn as an oven may be Utah. But we'll have to wait and see. So, alrighty. I think we've talked long enough. But yeah, that's the whole concept. The priesthood meeting for the 8 April 2024 is for the coronation. And the coronation has to come with a marriage and then presented to the church afterwards. And so it's not the 3 presiding high priests. It's the Christ, as prophesied. And that's the manner in which it has been set up in the book of Numbers, chapter 12, verse 6, is that with a restoration that is needed, God chooses his person through dreams. And so, yes, I've had other dreams also, giving me the keys of the presidency, even though Hinckley didn't have the presidency keys. He's not authorized. But in the dream, because the church had lied to me, saying that he's the one in charge, he's the one who gave me the keys to his office. And then I had another one about boots, giving the boots back to Monson. And he refused them. So the boots were mine. So those were put in my publication, that I need to make sure I have all my publications on file as well, because like I said, there's been some problems, and if there's somebody out there who knows how to get into and fix these little storage device things, assembling them together with the different parts, and knows how to put in the right part to replace the part that's broken, that's not allowing me to access the file. I have the broken drive still available that has the stuff that I began with, and I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure there are some missing files. I've tried to catch them over the years since to fix it, and I had gotten a device that helps me recover lost information on my drives, to try to recover all the information, but I did what I could. So, alrighty. Yeah, I'm putting out a call for help now, I guess. So, yeah, I'm not interested in money. Money is not really going to help me. But I could use some help with the files and getting everything all organized. So yeah, reach out to me on my website. There's the get to know me page or something like that under business email. That's my email. Use that to contact me. And or you can go through academia.edu and email me, and I can hook you up with my email address. Or I think that's it. I'm not sure if there's anything else. Maybe LinkedIn might have my email address. I'm not sure. So, alrighty. But know that the enemy is aware of me and is watching me. Russia used to. I'm not sure if they're still doing it. I'd be surprised if they're not, because that would mean they suck, as in as KGB spies. You're supposed to know your enemy. But they used to be obtaining all of my information, taking copies of my YouTube videos, getting copies of all my website files. They were getting everything from me. I had Russians email me asking me for the finished Paleo-Hebrew decipherment. And he came back several years later asking, have you got it finished? And so I linked them to the Academia page. But I didn't. It was before I put in the complete decipherment that I did while I was incarcerated in the shelter, being tortured there. So, alrighty, 10 o'clock. See if they're on their way now. And so I gotta maybe doing a grocery trip in the afternoon time, I guess, after they come. So it depends on when they ever get here. That's another issue. So yeah, I've got more files coming, or more stuff for the files coming as well. So if you noticed, I use entertainment, music, movies, TV shows in my videos to help you understand what I'm talking about. And so yes, I do collect music, movies, and TV shows as well. And so if you have DVDs that need to be converted and you're close by, you can drop them off. We'll convert them for you and add them to the records as well as a backup copy for you. But I most likely have them already. But we can find out, make sure. I've got a list of the stuff that I still need to get. And I'm keeping track of all the new releases. So, alrighty.